So the original title of this episode was How to Go from 100,000 to 1,000,000, because that's real catchy and everybody wants more money, and it's a sexy title. And the more I looked at it and Sean looked at it, we just didn't like the title because it's not what we actually think about. It's not what we actually even talk about. More money, we know, does not bring more joy, happiness, peace, contentment. Now, 100% has its place. More money, I'm not saying money is not important. It's absolutely important. But what we think having more money is not necessarily what we think it is. We really want to discuss that today. So whether it's going from 100,000 in your business to 1,000,000 or personal finances, I remember for me, I remember in college, I was like, man, if I could just make $10,000 a month, life will be set. Like, that would be glorious. And when it happened, it brushed over like a holiday, like that you didn't even pay attention to. It just didn't do anything for me. So I thought, you know what? Really what I need to do is make $200,000 a year. That's what I need to make. And then it went to 3, and then it just keeps going up, right? And I realized this is not bringing me what I want. And it's the same in business. Whatever that number is that I think we're at and that we should be at does not bring what you think it's going to bring, which is life will be good when I get there. It just isn't true. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about money is absolutely important, but what is more important than money? And how do we tie that into our lives, our actions, our mindset, our contentment? And yeah, we're going to get into it. And John, I know you have dealt with this multiple times, and it's really one of the reasons why the podcast is going, and that group coaching and one-on-one coaching is the thing that we offer at Level Up and Live.
Yeah, man. So when I hear 100,000 to 1,000,000, right? 1,000,000 sounds a lot sexier. And it just does. And like, depending on your age, depending on your season of life, and depending on where you are in your career, entrepreneurship, sales, business, entrepreneur, business owner, you may make in 100,000, you may make in 1,000,000, maybe making, 10 million plus, 20 million, and so forth. Well, one of the things that I realized really quickly making 6 digits years ago was in these businesses that I had built was that I never focused on what I wanted that revenue to do for me. So I knew I had a certain goal in mind on what I wanted that revenue. And that's, I think a lot of people, a lot of business owners, a lot of sales folks are like, I want to make $1 million a year, want to make $100,000 a year. Cause that's like that's like the sexy $1 million a year now, right? As far as inflation and stuff like that it seems like the new norm. Well, my question is why? Why $1 million a year? Question mark.
That's the question.
Ask yourself that. Why $1 million a year? See, I didn't ask myself that. Why $100,000 a year? Why $50,000 a year? When I was building the insurance company, I had no clue. I had just mentors and people around me. I wouldn't even consider them mentors. I would just consider them acquaintances. Well, here's the thing. It's like the news. It's like media. Who do you filter your information and listen to? Everybody around you, you got to make $1 million. You got to have $1 million in the bank. My question is, why?
Why?
It'll pay for my living. It'll pay for my house. It'll pay for my car. I got to pay for inflation. It'll pay for my vacations. Okay. But you can't do that on 100,000. You can't do that on 50,000. And so once I started asking myself these questions after experiencing burnout, delegation problems, leadership problems, frustration in my journey, entrepreneur journey, I go, well, that old saying, more money, more problems, right? There's a song to that. And so I remember my mentors around me, they were, one in particular, he was striving to make $1 million a year in his business. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, all right. And this was like probably 4 years ago. And I soon realized, I was like, dude, every time I've talked to this guy, which was like basically every quarter, I'd call and talk to him, check in and ask him questions and ask him what he was doing, what he had been up to. He was always working 10, 11, 12 hours a day at nighttime, in the morning time. He was basically at the realm of the customer, his team members, and everybody around him. Whether he liked that or not, I don't know. I can't speak to that. But I immediately felt it because when you hear somebody and you see somebody, I immediately felt the vibe. I'm like, dude, you could pay me $50 million a year, $1 million a year, whatever that number may be. But if I am experiencing these different things in my life, in my entrepreneurial life, then I'm focusing on the wrong things. What I should be focusing on is the guy in the mirror, the leader in the mirror. Are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Are you doing the things you want to do on a daily basis that's going to get you to where you want to be? Money is just a byproduct. Whether it's $100,000 a year, $1 million a year, $10 million a year, it's just a byproduct. And like you said, I agree with you 1,000%. I'm not against making $1 million a year, $10 million a year, $100 million a year. But here is the key ingredient. Why? And what are you going to do with that? What are you going to allow that money to do? What do you, for your business, for reinvesting back into it? Once I understood that is when it changed the game for me, because then I'm like, oh, so what I'm saying is to go from $100,000 to $1 million, you have to become a different human being. You have to have different skill sets. You have to work on different things, right? You can't be doing everything in your business. You can't be the bottleneck in your business. You can't, if you have burnout and you throw in the towel and it's just not sustainable, then you file for bankruptcy, or you say, I've quit after 8 years and be in business. And when you're almost to you're almost to where you want to be. And so all these different things, I'm like, well, why do so many businesses fail? Why do so many businesses not make it to $1 million? And so because they were focused on the $1 million.
Yeah.
They were focused on the wrong things, Ewan, instead of obtaining the skill sets. How do I delegate? How do I become a better leader for my employees? How do I serve and impact? How do I do these things?
Yeah, because what is a dollar amount? Like, what is it?
Yeah.
Like, it's really just nothing. If you think about it, it's just an external concept that how could that mean anything to you? For me, I was thinking, and I don't know if I've ever said it out loud before. Maybe we have in the mastermind group, but to speak to what you're saying, I remember thinking, if I make X, I'll be accepted. If I make X, I'll be the bigger dog in the room. And that will make me feel better about myself. Which, if you're to break that down, that's low self-esteem. I need something external out here. I need to have achieved something to be worthy, to be worth something. And so that's what I thought about all the time. I remember being at church, and there was a bigger church at the time, and there's people in there. There's a lot of rich people in there, and I never thought, like, I've never been one to want to have big flash things and be better than anybody else. It wasn't about being better than anyone else for me, to be honest. It was more of a, if I make X, no one can point the finger and say they're better than me. Not that I want to be better than them, but it's almost a protection in the mind. Like I want to have these external achievements and accomplishments because then I'll be somebody. And I know that's true. I listen to a lot of people. I listen to a lot of folk, and it's the same thing. They think when you say, I have X and I do X, I make X, that it's going to mean something about you. And people rest on that. And it's really a very shallow way to think and to be. And it's honestly, to speak to what you're saying, it's very unfulfilling too. Because once you get there, you will realize it doesn't mean anything. Nobody actually really cares. In fact, they might actually like you less because now you're acting off of this principle that chest up, I make X, I'm a big dog, I've done these things. And tell me this, how many people want to be around somebody like that? I don't know, at least not for long. Do you resonate with that? And I don't believe that you think those terms, Enneagram 8, I know we talk about Enneagram a lot. For you, it could be freedom, right? Like no one can put their thumb down on you. If I make X, I'll be elevated status to where no one can control me. That's true for a lot of 8s, and I'm a 3. And is it about if I'm achieving, I'm loved? You know what I mean? And so all these psychological internal issues are tied to dollar amounts or achievement status, and it's guaranteed to set up unfulfillment.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I know you can probably, so you're an entrepreneur, right? And you're working a full-time job, and you've done over 50 million in sales, right? In revenue sales.
Yep.
And one of the things I'm curious with you, because I've got my from my experience with like business owners and entrepreneurs, they have their different rhyme or reason in using those funds, right? Typically you're wanting to reinvest it back into the business, but a lot of business owners don't do that. They just use it to pay their bills. They use it, then that's, you're using it for the wrong reasons until, depending on what the whole reason behind opening up the business.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious with you, man, with what you do on a daily basis and doing over $50 million in sales and surrounding yourself with other guys that are in sales like that have done that or done that or done more than that. What, from your experience, what has been their mentality with money? Like, has it been from a standpoint of, well, this money is going to provide the lifestyle that I want to live, the house, the car, the status, the title? Or is it from a standpoint of like, hey, no, I'm going to use this money. I'm going to put my head down for the next 5 years and I'm going to build. I'm going to work on the company's dime, meaning like I'm going to learn from the CEO. I'm going to learn from the people within the organization that are crushing it. I'm going to get a priceless education, which is the skill set, and take that money from building that in that entrepreneurship of that organization, go apply it to, and it's only a matter of time before it's a side, you build your side hustle, or you go and put it into real estate or crypto or these different portfolios, these different assets to get out of that. From my experience, 99.9% of the people, they're not thinking like that. They're thinking the other person. Yep. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, I'm just thinking while you're asking that question, I'm going through the Rolodex of people in my mind, and very few. It's make the money, and then you see the nicer car and you see the nicer house, and the same actions and habits going out to sell are the same 10 years later.
Yeah, what does that lead to 10 years later?
I've seen burnout. I've felt burnout. I've seen burnout in some. I've seen some who are they haven't changed an ounce. They're still doing the same thing. And I don't want to, I'm careful to speak here. I don't want to judge. I'm not judging them from the point of saying, I don't think they're content or fulfilled, but I do listen to people's words and kind of where they're at and their stress levels and their contentment. And, when they're not focused on what you just asked, right, doing it in the version is propelling them forward in life to do something else, to have fulfillment and to, again, have all the things, but be content from within first. And then they have the things. It's not the other way around. It's not have the things, be content. It's be content and have the things. That's very rare, man, in the sales world, because it's all about commission. Make that money, because we've been told, make money, be happy. You'll be happy when you make the money. You'll have all the things, and then you'll have a good life. And that's just the story we've been sold. So yeah, I have not seen it often. Yeah.
Would you say a lot of the individuals that you work with, they are in their teens, 20s, 30s, or 40s, or even 50s? What would you say the majority of these individuals are experiencing this and focusing on the money aspect of it? And we all know what that leads to. You've already said it.
The older guys that have honed in on what we're talking about to the good side, they are elevated status in my mind. When I say that, they and I don't want to say have it together, but they're not focused on money anymore. They are the older guys that got it. They are doing the next thing that will bring more fulfillment. In fact, it's more to do with helping other people. And if I was to really think about it, they are business owners. They do own something now. The older gentlemen that I know, 50s, 60s, great sales guys, phenomenal sales guys, but they're still in hustle mode, still grinding. And they did not develop that aspect of the money does not equal my net worth, doesn't equal my self-worth. They have not figured that equation out yet, which is very funny. And so, for younger guys, this is the hard part, man. And this is maybe who we're even talking to here as well, is you can tell them the money doesn't matter, right? It does. You can tell them, though, focus on fulfillment, focus on your why, focus on where you're going to be, because we know in 5 years, even 10, 20 years, their world will be completely different. But when you're young, you just want to have it because you want to be able to spend it. You want to have, but until you taste it, you don't realize it's not actually what you want. Like, how would you speak to someone young and try and help them understand? Because I'm trying to think back. Did anybody tell me this? I don't think they did.
Yeah. Well, man, I feel like you can watch YouTube, you can listen to podcasts, you can listen to your dad, you can listen to your mom. But until it hits, until you understand that perspective, you may have to hear it 10, 15, 20, 30 times.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those instances where you not only have to hear it so many times, I think you have to get to a certain place where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. You can be 18 and that happened. You could be 24 and that happened. You could be 30, 40, 50. From my experience, everybody that we've either coached and now that we're cranking this, we're excited about the small group coaching and helping these individuals out that are experiencing the loneliness or burnout, delegation issues, leadership issues, and they are the bottleneck in their business and they are not experiencing the growth that they want to experience. Well, 99.9% of the time, I'm willing to put money on it because of them. They're looking, it's them in the mirror because there's a lack of clarity. There's a lack of vision. There's a lack of what's the plan? What's the point of making $1 million a year? I'm a big advocate. Let's make 1 million. Let's make 10. Let's make 100 million, baby.
Yes,
we can serve and impact more people, but for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Right? Money is a byproduct. Money, I remember, shout out to my boy Chris, years ago. This was probably a decade ago when I first started in the business in 2015. I remember going to Chris. I had my head down in the sand. I was rocking and rolling. I was just getting things done. You know how I roll, right? Failing forward, struggling, hitting every obstacle, trying to scrape every dime I could, right? To pay employees, to pay these contractors and just keep moving the needle. And I'll never forget when a mentor, I'd considered him a mentor. He was older than me. He had said, Sean, he goes, money is a byproduct. And so it has stuck with me for the last decade. Money is a byproduct. What I mean by that is, and for me, what it means is, if money is not a byproduct, then that's what I'm focusing on. $1 million a year, that's what I'm focusing on. Then money's not a byproduct. You see? That's right. If I'm focused on $1 million a year and that's all I'm focused on, because I've been that guy. I've been the guy that's lived paycheck to paycheck, $0 in my bank account. Didn't want to swipe my card when I first got into the insurance industry for a $30 shoes. Everybody made fun of me because I had holes in my shoes, holes in my socks. I would go to Angeletic resale shop to get a suit for a 1-year convention that I had to go to every year. And so I did these things, but I didn't want to swipe the card. Instead, I just wanted to reinvest the funds back into it. As my entrepreneurial journey progressed, I then realized, money is just a byproduct. What I really need to be focused on, because at that time when I had no money in my bank account, Ewan, when I had no money, when I was living paycheck to paycheck, no money in my bank account, I was going through this journey. I was focused on the money. I was focused on, I can't wait for this $2,000 to hit my bank account. I can't wait for this $5,000 to hit my bank account. The $5,000 would hit my bank account when I made 60 grand a year 9 years ago. And I was like, yes, for 2 seconds.
Yeah, 2 seconds.
For 2 seconds. And then I was like, why don't I feel any different? Why do I feel unfulfilled? Why do I still feel burnt? Why do I not feel any more satisfied and content? It's because that's what I focused on, was the money. I was like, so if I do this now, and then when I do hit $1 million, 5 million, 10 million, the same, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So that's going to be the same outcome. Yeah. So what do I need to focus on, Ewan? What I need to focus on is, as I learned over time, is the guy in the mirror. And then when my mentor said, hey, Sean, the byproduct is the money, brother. It's taken me X amount of years to learn that, right? The frequency of money, the byproduct of money.
Did you get it right away? Or did it take time? Slow burn, right?
So slow burn, dude. Slow burn. Because you have to see it in action. You have to see, okay, cool. Hey, thanks for sharing that. Byproduct's the money. What does that mean? You can go on Google, you can go on ChatGPT, and you can type it all in and give it share different context and perspective. But until you actually take, as an entrepreneur, business owner, you have to take action yourself and go, oh, so if I don't focus on the money and I do focus, because you'll get there. Don't get me wrong. Like, you'll get there.
Yeah.
But what it's going to do is all that time in between, whether it's 6 months, a year, 3 years, however long, you're going to look back and go, what happened? And that is, from my experience, what these business owners and entrepreneurs are experiencing. It's the stress. It's the loneliness. It's the lack of vision and planning. It's the lack of and then that leads to financial pressure because you're only focused on one thing. Well, when you're focused on that one thing, what happens is you get to a certain level and go, dude, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
And you're ready to throw in the towel. You're ready to exit the business and go work for the man, go work for somebody else. And that leads to whatever that leads to, that's not your full potential. And instead, in our group coaching and what we're going to be doing that we're super excited about is that we are teaching these individuals that are listening to this message right now. Listen to my voice, listening to this message. If you can catch it right now, put a period behind it and go, damn, that's what I need. I lack clarity. I lack vision. I lack slowing down to go fast. Then this is your sign. This is your calling.
And here's the paradox to that too, where, like we've said it multiple times, it's not about the money. Here's the paradox. You're going to make more. Your outcomes will produce your concepts, your mind, the way because everything we've talked about so far it's all thought. It's all thought and how you relate to what is going on out here. So it's not an out here thing when we think money. It's actually internal in our minds and our relationship with what's happening and how we perceive what we're doing with our lives. So when you do align it with exactly what you said, when you get that right, you're going to make lots and lots of money. And here's the beautiful part. You're going to be like, that's nice. I love my life. Even if that went down, I love my life. If that goes up, I love my life. How can I do more of the fulfillment and help others? And you're going to make lots and lots of money with this beautiful mindset, because if there's two versions, I know which one I'm going to want to be around as a customer, as a partner, as an employee, right? So all the things are going to go up, right? Like that's the scoreboard. That's the outcomes. So it's not like, don't think about the money and you're going to live on low means. It's the polar opposite. Just, you don't have to worry about it when you focus on you and your mindset and building yourself up, focusing on your day. Do you love your day? Because if you don't, then it doesn't matter if it's 10 million a year or not, and those are the things to really hone in on. And I hope there's someone young or old, whatever age you're hearing this, and this is a turning point for you to know that if you feel burned out, this conversation is for you. If you feel like you don't have what you think you should yet, this conversation is for you. And I know it's the conversation I needed. I have learned, we've talked about it for a long time, and it's come through to me that this is the only way. There's not 2 or 3 other ways. This is the only way. Like, there's not some version you get in the money and then you'll work it out. That's just always going to end up in a version of you that's not going to, that you wouldn't want to pick that version over the other version of you that does it in reverse.
The money will come.
Yeah.
The delayed gratification, the patience, the money will come, understanding that. And if you can understand that and you're in your 20s, and let me tell you something, we've got 23-year-olds and 24-year-olds that we coach.
Mm-hmm.
And in their realm of circle and in their environment, their peers, the other teens and 20s and 30, even 30-year-olds are asking them, what are you doing?
Yeah. They're so far ahead.
They're listening to their mentors. They're listening to their coaches. They're going slow to go fast. And so it's taking that leap of faith and understanding. You'll go, okay, so what you're saying, guys, is if I do focus on the $1 million and I make the $1 million, then the last 5 years, 10 years that I have been building to get to this $1 million, what happens is you have just been so obsessed in making that $1 million. And I've been that guy. And you're like, now what? Right? Typically 9 times out of 10, I'm willing to put money on it. If you're making $1 million a year, your lifestyle has increased. New car, new purchases, new house, upgraded jewelry, traveling experiences. You make $100,000 a year, but now you're spending $105,000 a year.
Yes.
Well, in my mind, over time, I'm like, dude, I'm going to work so harder on myself because I've been that guy that's had no money. And I've been the guy that's had money in my bank account, that focused on having the money in the bank account. You want to hear something funny, Ewan? It's not funny, but it is funny. Both are miserable. You can have $1 million in the bank account and $0 in the bank account. Both are miserable.
Yeah.
I want to be the guy in the middle. I want to be the guy that's whole.
Yeah.
I want to be the guy that removes myself and uses the money as a tool to design the life that I want to live and serve the people in my life, in my community. By having that focus, Ewan, as you know and attest, and the people around me, everything's leveled up in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I've been able to give back, serve more, provide more time, provide more financial resources for people because I focused on that.
And how do you, if you're to put a feeling on it, how does that feel? Because everything you just said right there, that last second, all you've been able to do in the last 2 years versus the guys just after money and talked about money all the time versus what you just said, helping, serving, leveled up. There's no comparison. Like,
no,
that's the quality of your life right there. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this, you can have that. Like I didn't understand it. And I guess it's an intangible, one of those scenarios where you have to be in that situation, I think, where you're like, all right, cool, woo woo. Like, I get it. Like, it makes sense, but it's not me. I'm not in that scenario.
Yeah. It's a belief.
Cool. Not if, but when you will get in that scenario. Something will happen. This is an endurance. This is a marathon. And I'm one to understand endurance in the life of that. You have to create urgency. You have to make things happen. I get that. But what are you focused on? And if you don't know what you're focused on, then what questions are you asking yourself? Well, if you're not asking yourself the questions, then you're going through life aimlessly. You're just focusing on one or two different things. Sure, you're going to get there. But when you get there, you're going to go back, holy cow, I burnt all these relationships. I've neglected my parents. I've neglected my friends and family. I neglected my health. I put on 40 pounds. And I'm just speaking to my older self. Don't be that guy. Learn from my mistakes. Learn from my trial and errors. That's all I got to say.
It's a beautiful episode, man. And stay tuned for next week's episode because it's accountability, how to achieve your impossible.
Yep.
Whatever you believe is impossible. Everything that Sean just said right there, if you think that's impossible, check into that next episode because nothing is impossible. Everything is belief, emotions, and actions. So you already have beliefs. You already have emotions. You're already taking actions. So to have anything you want or to be any way you want to be, it's just a sequence of tweaking, changing beliefs, changing your actions, and you'll feel your different emotions will also show up. You'll be a different person. And like you said, it's a marathon. Delayed gratification and accountability is so important to be able to get there because it's hard. It's tough to change.
Very tough.
But it's worth it. It takes time and having people have your back getting there is so much easier. In fact, it's more of a guarantee that you will actually get there as opposed to the guarantee of not. Just bailing out once again, which we've all done before. Having someone with you just solidifies that it's totally doable and achievable. So it is for everybody.
Yeah. Totally doable, man. If you're listening to this, thank you so much for listening all the way through. If you did make it all the way through, then you are a 1%er. You are a game changer. You're ready to level up and live your life. So thanks so much. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode moving forward. Drop it in the comments and share what you liked about the episode. This is what fuels our fire. This is what keeps us going. And then also too, I thought about throwing this out there, but man, if this hits you, if this resonated with you, I know there's a lot of individuals in our community that are like, I want to reach out, but I don't want to because I'm scared. I want to remain behind the scenes. And as soon as I get off this podcast, life's going to go back. But I'm going to challenge you right now to text me 936-788-4295, 936-788-4295. Hey, Sean, listen to your episode, fire it up, tell me more. And let's go from there. Watch your life freaking change. That challenge right there is going to be the difference, could be the difference maker in your trajectory and where you go next and who you become. Level up and live.
I'm going to be calling you. Level up and live.